Hi, today I want to talk about when it's not appropriate to use CMMI. And this is actually something that's come up a number of times with lots of opportunities for prospects or even clients to be making a really bad choice about whether or not they should be using CMMI at all. You see, there's pretty much a truism, if you will, about whether you can improve your process. For beginners, that is, from the very start, if you don't control your process, if you don't control your projects, if you don't control both your processes and your projects, in other words, you don't control your work, then there's really not much we can do with CMMI that will help your organization. Remember, CMMI is not supposed to be about getting a check in the box and declaring victory. CMMI is about improving your operational performance. If you're delivering products, then CMMI is to help how you manage the product evolution, how you manage and improve how you create those products, convert some clients' expectations, needs, or requirements into an actual deliverable thing. If you're providing a service, regardless of whether that service is IT services and help desk or software or lawn care and hotel and restaurant services, you're providing a service, then CMMI for Services is supposed to help improve how the operation performs the provision of those services. But if you don't control that work, then there's really nothing to improve with respect to doing that work. CMMI can be used for the things that you actually control and fundamentally can't be used for things that you don't control. So if you're not in control of the work and you're not in control of the processes, then there's really nowhere to go with CMMI because what you can improve is really out of your hands. And if the process doesn't work, who are you going to talk to if you don't like the way the process works, if you don't control it? If you make changes to a process, you may do so at potentially at your own risk. And obviously we don't want that. So really, if there's nothing for you to do with CMMI, because you don't control the project, the work, the process, then CMMI and model-based improvement using CMMI is not for you. That is at its most basic level. But today I wanted to really focus in on a particularly dicey problem with CMMI for development in particular. While it may be true to some degree in other aspects of CMMI for Services, this one is what comes very near and dear to many agile practices and agile development projects and organizations using agile development and agile management to run their projects. And that's the fact that CMMI for development beyond maturity level 2, specifically maturity level 3 and higher, of course, maturity level 3 deals with engineering. Very explicit practices in engineering. And while I don't want to get into an argument over whether they're best practices or not, that's not important, because the truth is that this is not about best practices. It's about improving the work that you're doing. And if the work that you're doing is not involving engineering, then just as though if you weren't in control of the work and the project and the processes, there's nothing to improve, you can't control that. If you're not doing engineering, then maturity level 3 in CMMI for development is really going to be out of scope for you. That is very important for many operations to understand, that CMMI for development maturity level 3 is to help you, among other things, improve the engineering of your work. Now, there's a lot of work out there that doesn't involve much engineering. There's plenty of products, the engineering for which is defined by the architecture. The engineering is defined by legacy. The engineering is defined by many other things that has nothing to do with the organization that is building the product. Because you can build a lot without much engineering. And CMMI for development just fundamentally does not work well at maturity level 3 when organizations are not doing engineering. Because the assumption, the underlying assumption, if you will, about CMMI for development maturity level 3 is that you are, in fact, doing engineering, and there is business value to do some very rigorous analysis and planning and execution of engineering practices so that you could improve those engineering practices. But if you're building products that don't require a lot of engineering, CMMI for development maturity level 3 is going to be really, really tough, because a lot of that improvement, a lot of the improvement that you'd expect out of maturity level 3, the organization's just not doing when they're not doing that kind of stuff. You can build plenty of wonderful products. I would imagine that the vast majority of mobile applications and many websites and a lot of functionality is out there, and people pay for it, and they're happy, and no one's complaining, and the quality is great. But a lot of that stuff did not require a lot, if any, actual engineering practices. Now, I'm specifically referring to the kind of engineering that you'd probably need a 4-year degree to understand, to do. I'm not talking about the kind of engineering that you go to a class for a week and come out with a degree or a certificate that says you're now an engineer. I'm talking about actual engineering, analysis, engineering of modeling and design. I'm specifically referring to things that require multiple component integration and systems of systems and disparate functionality and trade-offs, and where you can't have everything be done perfectly because certain things need to be optimized at the expense of others or sub-optimized so that the whole system can work. I'm talking about things that require systems engineering thinking and the interaction of multiple systems over time and growth and the performance of these different components systemically and as a functional component, and you get on and on. I'm really getting into stuff that's complicated engineering. I'm not going to disparage anybody who's developing product that doesn't require that kind of engineering. But the fact is that there's a lot of it out there that doesn't need it. And let's face it, a mobile app, for most kind of things that we use mobile apps for, doesn't require the same level of rigor and doesn't carry with it the same kind of risk as, say, developing software that's going to run in a spaceship or an aircraft or something that you actually is life or safety critical. You don't often get a second chance and a third chance and a 29th chance to deliver something that you only have one shot into space or it's done. You're not going to necessarily iterate through, well, maybe this landing software isn't exactly what we'd want. Let's see how many planes it takes to get the landing software to work properly. You say, I mean, that's the kind of thinking that is often plenty fine, okay, with a mobile app, that no one's going to get hurt with the mobile app crashes. But you're not doing engineering, you can't improve the engineering you're not doing. So just as maturity level 2, if you're not in charge of all of the processes and all the projects and the work that gets done, and you can't improve that, if you're not doing engineering, you can't improve at maturity level 3. So honestly, if you're a maturity level 3 or in pursuit of maturity level 3, and you don't really have the need to do hardcore engineering, maybe you ought to look at something else to help you improve. And chances are that CMMI for Services actually has everything in it that you're already doing, that you already could use, or if you're not, you could really put them in there and make a real difference to you and your customers. Because when you're not doing engineering, trying to improve using a development methodology or a model-based improvement that assumes you have a development methodology is really going to be a tough road to hoe. And I strongly recommend that you not try to use CMMI for development at maturity level 3 when you're not doing that kind of engineering. It's not that CMMI for development maturity level 3 is so overburdening and heavyweight. It's meant for certain types of work. And if you're not doing that kind of work, it's going to make no sense for you to do it. There's no value, there's no benefit, there's no improvement, because there's nothing to improve. You're not doing the work that's kind of there to improve. An analogy would be that if someone told you that you needed to exercise in a certain way, or you needed to eat a certain diet, to add something to a diet, or to take away something from a diet, but you don't have that condition, why would you do it? If someone said to me, for example, you need more sugar and more fat in your diet, I'd be looking at them like, you don't have any idea what you're talking about. I don't look like, and I actually don't physically need more fat or sugar in my diet. Why would I add fat and sugar to my diet if I didn't need it? That makes no sense whatsoever. Why would I want to add certain exercises for myself if I don't need physical growth in those exercises. I wouldn't need rehabilitation training for a broken arm if my arm's not broken. And so I think that's the kind of philosophy that people don't apply when they're making the decision about whether or not to use CMMI for development. Are you doing development or not? Are you doing engineering specifically? Because if you're not doing engineering, then CMMI for development beyond maturity level 2, meaning maturity level 3 and higher, is not the way to go. Forget it. That's what I had to say. Forget CMMI if you're not doing development in the actual engineering sense. So with that, I hope it helps you understand why, if you're struggling, why you're struggling. And if you're not sure, potentially it helps you make a decision on what to do and how to go. Good luck.